She served coffee with a smile, even when the world gave her every reason not to. Mocked for a scar she earned saving a life, she faded into the background, until one stranger looked beyond the surface and everything changed. Rain streaked the large front window of the Sunrise Griddle, distorting the image of a woman standing behind the counter. Her name was Cara Monroe, late 20s, honey-brown skin, deep-set green eyes, and a scar that curved from the corner of her left eyebrow to the top of her cheek. Her face, marked by the pale, slightly raised tissue, was often unreadable, as if carved from difficult experience rather than youthful innocence. She moved with an understated grace, the quiet efficiency of someone used to being stared at but rarely truly seen. That particular morning, the diner bustled with the usual crowd of regulars, the clatter of plates and hum of conversation filling the air, yet Cara felt an isolating quiet within the noise. A group of teenagers huddled in a booth by the window, their voices carrying over the general din. They giggled amongst themselves, their eyes flicking towards Cara. Subtle pointing turned into not-so-subtle gestures aimed at her face. Cara's ears, finely tuned to the undercurrents of the diner, caught a whisper, sharp with adolescent cruelty. "Bet she tells people it's from a dragon." A ripple of laughter followed. Cara didn't flinch outwardly. She had built a thick skin over the years and had indeed heard far worse variations of the theme. But as she moved to refill their coffee cups with a steady, practiced hand, something deep behind her green eyes dimmed slightly. The scar wasn't just a physical mark. It had become a heavy curtain obscuring the vibrant, resilient woman underneath from a world that seemed determined only to see the imperfection. What those giggling teenagers, and indeed most of the people who frequented the Sunrise Griddle, didn't know was that the scar curving across Cara's cheek held a story soaked in the real heat of smoke and the quiet courage of selflessness. Years ago, when she was just a 10-year-old girl, a fire had ripped through their small house. Without a second thought for her own safety, Cara had instinctively run back into the inferno to pull her baby brother Milo from his crib. The flames had claimed the smooth skin of her face, leaving the indelible mark, but in return she had claimed his life. Now 20 years old, Milo was thriving, attending college on a hard-won scholarship, a future unfolding before him that Cara had fought for. She worked double shifts, her feet aching and her back protesting, to send him money every month, ensuring he had everything he needed. That afternoon, as the lunch rush dwindled, the door of the Sunrise Griddle opened and a man walked in, an unusual figure for their quiet, unassuming side of town. His charcoal suit was perfectly tailored, looking distinctly out of place among the faded Formica tables, stained menus and chipped coffee mugs that were the diner's hallmarks. He was tall, likely in his mid-30s, with a pale complexion and sharp, intelligent blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His name was Evan Blackstone. He chose a seat at the far corner booth, positioning himself to face the entire diner, like someone accustomed to observing and analyzing people from a distance. Cara approached him with her usual efficiency, took his order for black coffee and a piece of apple pie, and served him politely. He simply offered a brief, genuine smile in return. Evan Blackstone took a careful sip of the coffee Cara had poured. A faint smile touched his lips as he set the mug down. "Strong coffee," he noted, his voice quiet but clear. He paused, his gaze meeting hers directly for a fleeting moment. Just like the woman who made it, Cara blinked, caught slightly off guard. Compliments on the coffee were common enough, a standard part of her job. But a compliment that seemed to extend beyond the beverage, that hinted at seeing her, those were practically extinct in her experience. "Thanks," she replied softly, turning to clear plates from a nearby table, her movements a familiar rhythm of work. His tone wasn't flirtatious or overly familiar. It was simply observant, like he had looked past the scar and the uniform and the job to see something no one else had bothered to notice. To Cara's quiet surprise, the stranger in the suit returned the very next day, and then the day after that. He settled into the same corner booth at roughly the same time each afternoon, a new fixture in the diner's predictable rhythm. He was always absorbed in something, reading thick books, mostly biographies, or working silently on a sleek, expensive-looking laptop. And each time, without fail, he would wait for Cara to serve him. His order was always simple: black coffee, sometimes a pastry. What wasn't simple was the tip he left every single day, exactly 200% of his bill, neatly folded under the saucer. It was an amount that felt less like generosity and more like something else entirely. Cara found herself wondering if it was simple kindness, a quiet acknowledgement she couldn't decipher, or perhaps some unspoken guilt or motive she couldn't fathom. The routine continued for several weeks, a silent understanding growing between the quiet man in the suit and the woman behind the counter. One slow afternoon, when the diner was nearly empty, Evan looked up from his book as Cara wiped down the adjacent table. "Do you read?" he asked, his voice gentle. Cara paused her wiping, the familiar gesture of her work. "Only menus," she replied, a faint tired smile touching her lips. He chuckled softly, a warm, pleasant sound. He looked at her face, his blue eyes steady and unafraid. "That scar," he began, and Cara tensed, bracing herself for the inevitable question or comment about its origin. But his tone softened as he continued. "Doesn't define you, but," he added, leaning forward slightly, "it hints at a story worth telling." For the first time since he started coming in, Cara truly met his gaze, holding it for a long moment. "It's a story most people don't want to hear," she said quietly, the truth of years of dismissive looks heavy in her voice. "I do," he replied simply and unequivocally. The invitation hung in the air. Hesitantly at first, and then with a growing sense of release, Cara began to share parts of her story during the quiet moments between customers. Over lukewarm coffee refills and wiped-down counters, she recounted the night of the fire, the smell of smoke, the terror, the blinding heat. Dragging a screaming Milo through the flames just moments before the firemen arrived, she spoke of the aftermath, the skin grafts, the long, painful recovery, and the devastating loss of her parents shortly after the fire, leaving her and Milo alone. She explained how she had dropped out of high school, sacrificing her own education and dreams to become his sole guardian, working whatever job she could find to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. She told it all without a trace of self-pity, just as plain fact. Evan just listened. He didn't offer platitudes or advice. There was no judgment in his eyes, only a quiet, steady presence and silence that seemed to honor the immense strength her story revealed. Unknown to Cara, the quiet man in the corner booth was far more than just a well-dressed regular with a penchant for strong coffee and generous tips. Evan Blackstone was the brilliant and notoriously reclusive founder of a hugely successful luxury architecture firm, known for its innovative and aesthetically stunning designs. He was also the silent, anonymous investor in 5 major non-profit organizations dedicated to various causes, from supporting underprivileged youth to providing resources for trauma survivors. But perhaps more significantly, he was a man still quietly grieving the loss of his beloved older sister, a vibrant woman who had herself been a survivor of a terrible accident that left her with visible scars. His sister had taught him profound lessons about looking beyond physical appearance and recognizing the resilience of the human spirit. In Cara, with her quiet strength, her deep-set eyes, and the story etched onto her face, he saw echoes of his sister in uncanny, resonant ways. Their quiet connection, however, was not destined to remain private. One afternoon, while Evan was deeply engaged in conversation with Cara across the counter, a tourist with a telephoto lens happened to be passing by. Spotting the distinctive figure of the reclusive millionaire, a face occasionally featured in business magazines, talking intently with the scarred waitress, they snapped a photo. The next morning the photo, slightly grainy but unmistakable, was splashed across the online tabloids with a sensational headline, "Mystery Woman with Scar Seen Dining with Reclusive Millionaire." The image went viral instantly, fueled by curiosity about Evan and cruel speculation about Cara. Cara's phone, which she rarely used, began buzzing incessantly with messages and notifications. At first she stared at the headline and photo in disbelief, a short, sharp laugh escaping her lips at the absurdity of it all. But then, as the online comments poured in venomous and cruel, the laughter died. She started to cry, the harsh public scrutiny cracking open old wounds she thought she had carefully sealed away. The unwanted public attention was too much. The sudden glare felt like a spotlight searing away the quiet anonymity Cara had built around herself. The comments online were brutal, focusing relentlessly on her scar, spinning wild, humiliating theories about her connection to Evan. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly overwhelmed. Without a word to anyone except a hastily written note left for the diner manager, explaining she wouldn't be coming back, Cara disappeared. She didn't leave a forwarding address, didn't answer her phone, and didn't reply to Evan's increasingly frantic texts and calls. Evan tried reaching out through the diner manager, even contacting Milo to see if he knew where she was. But Cara had effectively shut herself off from the world. The unwanted attention, amplified by the unforgiving nature of the internet, had not only reopened old emotional wounds, but seemed to pour salt into them. Hidden away from the prying eyes of the internet and the judgment of strangers, Cara was forced to confront not just the pain of the present, but the buried dreams of the past. For years, tucked away in a worn notebook, she had kept sketches and plans for a bakery she longed to open. She'd even given it a name that held deep meaning for her: Kind Crumbs. It wasn't just about selling pastries, it was meant to be a place she envisioned, filled with mismatched chairs, bookshelves overflowing with stories and poetry written on coffee cups. A haven where misfits, the lonely, and anyone who felt a little broken could gather and feel a sense of belonging, of being truly home. But the cruel glare of the tabloids and the internet's harsh judgment had shattered her already fragile confidence. The notebook, once a source of quiet hope, felt like a painful reminder of a dream now impossible. With a heavy heart, she tossed it into the back of a dusty drawer, burying it along with her aspirations and her belief in her own worthiness of being seen. Meanwhile, Milo, sharp and determined, now a law student with a growing sense of responsibility for the sister who had sacrificed everything for him, managed to track Evan Blackstone down. He found Evan looking haggard and worried, clearly deeply affected by Cara's sudden disappearance. Milo didn't pull any punches. "She doesn't need saving, Mr. Blackstone," Milo stated, his voice firm. "Cara is the strongest person I know." "But," he continued, his gaze earnest, "she does need someone to remind her that she is worth being seen, that the world isn't just waiting to hurt her." Evan listened intently, recognizing the depth of the bond between the siblings. He simply nodded, a flicker of understanding in his sharp blue eyes. "Then tell me where she is," he said quietly. "I'll knock only once. If she doesn't want to see me, I'll leave. But I have to try." Milo hesitated for only a moment before giving him the location of their childhood cabin, a place of refuge Cara had always retreated to. Following Milo's directions, Evan drove for hours, leaving the city and its relentless noise behind. He found the cabin nestled deep in the woods, far from cell signal and the demands of society. The air was clean and cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Cara was there. She had retreated to this place of childhood memories, seeking solace in the familiar quiet. She spent her days baking bread, the simple, repetitive motions a comfort, filling the small house with a warmth she herself had stopped feeling. When Evan's car finally crunched up the gravel drive, she emerged onto the small porch, flour dusting her apron. She stood there, her face a mixture of surprise, confusion, and the raw vulnerability she had been trying to hide. She was unsure whether to scream at him for finding her or simply break down and cry. In the end, she chose silence, watching him approach, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Evan stopped at the foot of the porch stairs, making no move to come closer. He simply looked at her, his gaze steady and kind, devoid of the pity or judgment she had come to expect. In his hand he held a small, smooth piece of wood. He walked slowly to the porch railing and placed it carefully on the weathered surface. It was a small, hand-carved plaque, simple yet profound. It read, "For the woman who made the fire beautiful." Cara's eyes fixed on the words, then lifted to his face. She stared at the plaque, then back at him, a fragile question forming in her mind. "You came all this way, for what?" she finally managed to whisper, her voice hoarse. A gentle smile touched Evan's lips, the kind that reached his eyes. "For coffee," he said softly. The familiar routine, a shared anchor in the storm, and, he added, his voice dropping almost to a whisper, "For you." His simple, unexpected words, coupled with the heartfelt message on the plaque, were the final catalyst. The carefully constructed wall Cara had built around her emotions over weeks of hiding finally crumbled. The shame, the fear, the exhaustion of carrying the weight of others' judgment, it all poured out. She covered her face with her hands, her body shaking with the force of it. Tears she hadn't allowed herself to shed, tears born of pain she didn't deserve and loneliness she couldn't bear, streamed down her face. Evan didn't move towards her, didn't try to comfort her with empty phrases. He simply stayed where he was, a silent, unwavering presence. He let her cry, long and hard, not attempting to fix her or rush her through the pain, but simply to witness her in her most vulnerable moment, allowing her the space she needed to begin healing. Over the following days, Cara slowly began to let Evan stay. They settled into a quiet rhythm at the cabin. They cooked simple meals together in the small kitchen, the scent of food filling the air. They talked for hours, sharing stories, fears, and quiet dreams under the vast, unpolluted night sky. They walked by the river that bordered the property, the sound of the water a soothing counterpoint to their conversations. And then, one afternoon, Evan gently brought up her buried dream. He told her he believed in her vision and offered her a significant investment, not a loan but a partnership, seed money to finally open her dream bakery. Cara hesitated, the old fears resurfacing. "People will say I used you," she said, her voice small. Evan looked at her, his blue eyes full of conviction. "Then let them talk," he said, his voice firm but kind. "You'll be too busy making something beautiful for the world to pay them any mind." 6 months later, in a small, vibrant, artsy district in a town far enough away to feel like a fresh start but close enough to feel like home, Scarlet and Kindness opened its doors. Cara had chosen the name with deliberate intention. Scarlet for the mark that had once brought her pain but was now a part of her story, and Kindness for the quality she believed the world needed more of. The interior of the bakery was everything she had envisioned. Walls painted in warm, inviting tones. Mismatched antique chairs gathered around sturdy wooden tables and shelves lined with books customers were encouraged to borrow. The staff wore simple aprons embroidered with quiet affirmations, and behind the counter, no longer hiding or fading into the background, stood Cara, scar and all, beaming, her green eyes sparkling with a light that hadn't been there before. The bakery quickly became more than just a place to buy pastries. Word spread, subtly at first, then more widely, about the warmth and acceptance found within its walls. Some of the customers who had once frequented the Sunrise Griddle, and perhaps even been among those who had whispered and pointed, eventually found their way to Scarlet and Kindness. They came quietly, ordered humbly, their past behavior unspoken but acknowledged in their deferential manner. More significantly, others, strangers with their own visible or invisible insecurities, marks they carried from life's battles, began to find comfort there. The atmosphere Cara had cultivated made them feel seen, welcomed, and safe. The bakery wasn't merely a business. It was rapidly becoming a sanctuary for souls seeking a little kindness in a world that could be harsh. Cara didn't just run the bakery, she nurtured it and the people within it. Drawing from her own experiences of feeling overlooked and judged, she made a conscious effort to create a truly inclusive workplace. She began mentoring young girls recovering from burn injuries, offering them not just a job but a sense of purpose and belonging. She hired men with facial tattoos who struggled to find work elsewhere, recognizing their skills and character beyond the ink. Teens battling body dysmorphia found acceptance and patience on her staff. Cara understood deeply that everyone carried a story, often one hidden beneath the surface, and here, within the warm embrace of Scarlet and Kindness, every single story was treated with reverence and respect, considered sacred. It wasn't long before the unique ethos of Scarlet and Kindness and Cara's inspiring story caught the attention of the local media. A feature article appeared in a prominent regional newspaper under the headline, "Scarred Woman Builds Healing Haven from Pain." This time, however, the public response was dramatically different. Instead of cruelty and judgment, there was an outpouring of awe, admiration, and empathy. The story was picked up by national news outlets, shared widely across social media, and Cara's face, scar included, became a symbol, not of something to be mocked or pitied, but of incredible resilience and the transformative power of turning pain into purpose. This time, when the media whirlwind hit, Cara was ready. She didn't flinch or hide. She met the attention with grace and a radiant smile that seemed to say, "I am here, and I am unashamed." Amidst the growing success of the bakery and the whirlwind of public attention, Cara and Evan's relationship deepened quietly. He remained her steady anchor, a silent partner in her journey, celebrating her triumphs and offering support during the challenging moments. One evening, not long after the national news stories broke, Evan didn't propose with a traditional diamond ring. Instead, he presented her with a flour-dusted recipe card. On it, in his neat handwriting, he had written, "Let's start a life. Like your cinnamon rolls, messy, warm, and unforgettable." Cara stared at the card, then at him, and burst into laughter, tears of pure joy streaming down her face. "Only," she managed between laughs, "if we make a sourdough starter together and name it Hope." He smiled, his sharp blue eyes crinkling at the corners. "Agreed," he said, his voice filled with love. They decided to marry in the bakery, the place where Cara had truly found herself again. The ceremony was perfectly imperfect, filled with the warmth and authenticity that defined their lives. The chairs were a charming mix of mismatched styles, just as Cara had always envisioned for her dream space. Her simple, elegant wedding dress had a small, almost invisible burn mark on the hem, a quiet nod to the fire that had shaped her path. Evan, usually so composed, forgot his vows halfway through, eliciting gentle laughter from their small gathering of family and closest friends. but when Cara leaned in to kiss him, she whispered against his lips, her voice thick with emotion, "This is the life I never thought I'd deserve." It was a life built not on perfection, but on resilience, kindness, and the acceptance of their beautiful, messy imperfections. Inspired by her journey, and the stories she heard daily at the bakery, Cara began to write. Her book wasn't a traditional memoir, but a series of heartfelt letters addressed to the scarred little girl she once was. She poured her heart onto the pages, sharing the fear, the pain, the moments of despair, and the slow, arduous process of finding her way back to herself. She wrote about the fire, the loss, the struggle, but also about the unexpected kindness of strangers, the unwavering love of her brother, and the transformative power of embracing one's scars. Her publisher titled it Beauty in the Burn. It resonated deeply with readers around the world, becoming a bestseller and touching millions of lives who carried their own invisible or visible marks. Years passed, filled with the sweet scent of baking bread, the hum of conversation at Scarlet and Kindness, and the steady love between Cara and Evan. One of Cara's proudest moments came when she sat front row at Milo's law school graduation, her heart swelling with emotion as she watched him walk across the stage to receive his degree. The dean, during his address, spoke movingly about the importance of perseverance and sacrifice, and then announced the establishment of a new scholarship fund at the university, endowed anonymously by Evan but named in honor of Cara Monroe, a tribute to her selflessness and dedication that had made Milo's education possible. As the dean spoke Cara's name and the reason for the fund, there wasn't a dry eye in the room, including Cara's. Despite her success and happiness, Cara never forgot where she came from. One quiet afternoon, she found herself drawn back to the old Sunrise griddle. It looked much the same, though it was clear there were new staff members behind the counter, faces she didn't recognize. She ordered a cup of coffee, sitting in a booth near the window where she used to work. When it was time to leave, she left a generous tip, far more than the bill, and tucked a small folded note underneath the saucer. It was addressed to the waitress who had served her, a young woman who seemed tired and a little lost. The note was simple. To the waitress who feels invisible, you're not. Keep going. It was a quiet echo of the kindness that had once changed her own life. The hiring philosophy at Scarlet and Kindness remained unwavering and became a cornerstone of its identity. Cara was committed to providing opportunities for those often overlooked by mainstream society. The team she built was a testament to this commitment. The head pastry chef was a brilliant artist with a talent for creating stunning and delicious desserts, who happened to be mute and communicated through sign language and written notes. The baker responsible for the morning bread was a young man with Down syndrome, whose joy and precision in kneading dough brought a special energy to the kitchen. And the woman who made the most talked-about melt-in-your-mouth brownies was a former inmate given a second chance and finding purpose in her work. Cara's journey made her a sought-after speaker, particularly at events focused on resilience and overcoming adversity. She was invited to deliver the keynote address at a major survivors gala, sharing the stage with other individuals who had faced immense challenges. During a post-speech interview, she was asked what single thing had kept her going through the darkest times. Cara paused, gathering her thoughts, her hand instinctively touching the edge of her scar. She looked out at the audience, her green eyes clear and steady. "The fire gave me a scar, yes," she answered, her voice strong. "It marked me physically. But more importantly, in saving my brother, it also lit the path to my true purpose. It showed me what I was capable of, and it taught me the profound value of every single life." Even with her widespread positive recognition, the internet remained a place where negativity could breed. Cara occasionally still faced online trolls and cruel comments about her appearance. But now, armed with her confidence and a deep sense of self-worth, she faced them with grace and unexpected wit. During a live online Q&A session, when a particularly nasty comment about her scar appeared in the chat, Cara smiled gently at the camera. "If my face bothers you so much," she replied calmly, her voice kind but firm, "maybe instead of focusing on what you see on the outside, try looking at your own heart instead." The response went viral, becoming a rallying cry for kindness and empathy online. One rainy afternoon, cleaning out her old room at the cabin, Cara rediscovered a small, dusty wooden box, a time capsule she had made when she was 12, just a few years after the fire. Her younger self, perhaps instinctively understanding the weight she already carried, had tucked away small treasures. Inside, among faded drawings and pressed leaves, was a crayon drawing of a cheerful, slightly lopsided building with smoke curling from a chimney. Clearly a bakery. Beside it was a stick-figure drawing of a girl with a lopsided smile, and painstakingly written in a child's hand were the words, "Someday I'll be seen." Holding the drawing, looking at the hopeful declaration from her younger self, Cara wept, a release of years of pain and a profound acknowledgement of how far she had come. The bakery hummed with activity, a beloved hub of the community. One busy weekend morning, just as the rush was beginning, disaster struck. The main oven, the heart of the operation, sputtered, smoked, and with a loud bang, died completely. The staff panicked, staring at the broken appliance and the growing line of customers. But Cara, instead of despairing, burst out laughing. "Well, guess we're going raw today," she declared, her eyes sparkling with improvisation. They quickly pivoted, putting out trays of beautiful no-bake treats, fresh fruit tarts, yogurt parfaits, and chilled desserts. They turned the unexpected mishap into a themed event, decorating with tropical flair and playing upbeat music. The raw and radiant weekend at Scarlet and Kindness became legendary in local lore, a testament to their resilience and ability to find joy in unexpected challenges. Scarlet and Kindness gained such a reputation for its warmth and unique story that its fame reached unexpected corners. One day, a world-famous celebrity couple, known for their philanthropic work and quiet support of meaningful causes, slipped into the bakery hoping for a discreet visit. They mingled with customers, admired the art on the walls, and quietly enjoyed their pastries. When they were recognized and eventually revealed themselves, they didn't ask for special treatment or exclusive access. Instead, they approached Cara and shyly asked if they could take a selfie with her, telling her how much her story had inspired them. Cara, amused and touched, readily agreed, but only on one condition. They had to pose with flour smudges on their noses. To everyone's delight, the glamorous couple happily obliged, leaving with flour-dusted faces and a genuine smile. With their lives now intertwined and their dreams taking shape, Cara and Evan purchased a small, simple lake house, a place for quiet retreats and shared moments away from the demands of their busy lives. One evening, sitting on the porch overlooking the still water as the sun painted the sky in fiery hues, Cara raised her glass. She looked at Evan, her heart full. "To the girl with the scar," she said softly, her voice catching slightly. "She's finally home." Evan smiled, clinking his glass against hers, understanding the depth of that simple statement. Home wasn't just a physical place anymore, it was a feeling of belonging, of being accepted and loved completely, scars and all. Years later, looking in the mirror one morning, Cara noticed a fine streak of silver threading through her honey-brown hair near her temple, her first gray hair. Instead of feeling a pang of vanity or sadness about the passage of time, she smiled at her reflection. She tilted her head, examining the silver strand closely. It wasn't just a sign of aging, it felt like a badge of honor, a testament to the life she had lived, the battles she had fought, and the wisdom she had gained. "You've earned every shade," she whispered to her reflection, a quiet acknowledgement of the beautiful, complex tapestry of her life. Life continued to unfold, bringing new joys. Cara and Evan welcomed a baby girl into their lives, a beautiful daughter with Cara's deep-set eyes and Evan's quiet intensity. They named her Ember, a name that quietly echoed the fire that had brought Cara pain, but also led her to her purpose. Years later, holding Ember close, rocking her gently, Cara would often whisper little truths about the world. One lesson in particular, she returned to again and again. Stroking Ember's soft cheek, she would murmur, "You don't have to be perfect, my love. Nobody is, just be kind. Kindness is what truly matters." Inevitably, as Ember grew and spent time helping in the bakery kitchen, she experienced a small childhood rite of passage. While excitedly reaching for a cooling tray of cookies, her little finger brushed against the hot metal. A yelp of pain, a small red mark appearing on her skin. Cara rushed to her side, her heart clenching with familiar empathy. She gently examined the small wound, kissing it softly. "Oh, sweetie," she said, her voice calm and reassuring. "It's okay. See, it'll heal." She looked into Ember's tear-filled eyes. "And even if it leaves a tiny mark," she added, remembering her own journey, "it will teach you something. It will teach you to be careful, and it will show you how strong your body is." Time has a way of bringing moments of unexpected connection. One day, a young man walked into Scarlet and Kindness and awkwardly approached Cara, asking if they were hiring. Cara looked at him, and slowly recognition dawned. It was one of the teenagers from the Sunrise Griddle years ago. the one who had whispered about the dragon scar. He looked nervous, shamefaced, clearly remembering his past behavior. Cara could see the regret in his eyes. He stumbled over his words, apologizing for how he and his friends had acted so long ago. Cara listened patiently. When he finished, she simply smiled, a genuine warm smile. "This place," she said, gesturing around the bustling, accepting bakery, "is for second chances." She hired him on the spot. Cara and Evan, recognizing the ongoing need for support for burn survivors and those with visible differences, decided to formalize their efforts. Drawing on Evan's resources and Cara's personal experience and public platform, they launched the Scarlet and Kindness Foundation. The foundation's mission was comprehensive, providing funding for reconstructive surgeries and medical care that survivors often struggled to afford. But it also focused on emotional healing, offering therapy and counseling, as well as creative outlets like storytelling workshops, helping survivors reclaim their narratives and find their voices. The story of Cara, the bakery, and the foundation resonated far beyond their town. The hashtag Scarlet and Kindness began trending globally, a grassroots movement fueled by people sharing their own stories of overcoming challenges, embracing their scars, both physical and emotional, and finding moments of healing and connection. People posted photos of their own marks, wrote essays about their journeys, and celebrated acts of everyday kindness inspired by Cara's example. Cara became a global symbol, not of victimhood or pain, but of the incredible power of vulnerability, resilience, and transformation. The success and positive impact of Scarlet and Kindness led to an influx of requests from entrepreneurs and community leaders across the country and even internationally, all wanting to open their own versions of the healing haven. Franchise requests poured in. At first, Cara hesitated, protective of the unique spirit of the original bakery. Could the magic be replicated? But then she thought of all the people who needed a place like hers, a sanctuary of kindness and acceptance. Looking at Evan, she whispered, "Let's share the warmth." Within 3 years, Scarlet and Kindness locations, each imbued with the original's ethos, opened in 5 major cities, spreading Cara's message of hope and acceptance far and wide. Cara's growing influence and the powerful message of her life story led to an invitation to speak on the prestigious TEDx stage. Standing before a vast, silent audience, her scar visible under the bright lights, she delivered a talk titled, "The Fire That Freed Me." She spoke eloquently about how the event that had initially caused her so much pain and isolation ultimately became the catalyst for finding her strength and purpose. "I am not what happened to me," she declared, her voice ringing with conviction. "I am what I did with it." The talk garnered millions of views online, inspiring countless individuals to reframe their own adversities and find power in their scars. As the years went by and the Scarlet and Kindness empire grew, Cara eventually decided to step back from the day-to-day operations of the original bakery. She handed leadership over to Milo, who, after a successful start in law, found his true passion lay in continuing his sister's mission, bringing his legal and business acumen to manage the expanding network. But even in retirement, Cara couldn't completely leave the place that felt so much like home. She still came in every Sunday morning, the quietest time in the bakery, to bake the first batch of cinnamon rolls herself, the familiar comfort of the dough under her hands a grounding ritual. On their 10th wedding anniversary, a milestone filled with shared memories and quiet contentment, Evan gave Cara a gift unlike any other. It was a sealed envelope containing a letter he had written almost a decade earlier. During the very first week they met at the Sunrise Griddle, Cara opened it with trembling hands, her heart full of anticipation. The letter, dated just days after their first conversation, contained Evan's raw, immediate impressions of her. It read, "There is a woman at the diner. She carries her history on her face, but her eyes hold a universe of quiet strength and resilience. One day, this woman will change the world, and I will be the luckiest man alive just to hold her hand while she does it." Cara wept, the words a powerful reminder of the depth of his love and the profound way he had seen her from the very beginning. Ember, their daughter, grew into a thoughtful and kind young girl, often spending time at the bakery, absorbing the atmosphere and the stories of the people who frequented it. One afternoon, as a spirited 12-year-old, she excitedly announced her own entrepreneurial idea to her parents. She wanted to open a small cookie shop, Just for people who feel sad, she explained, her eyes bright with empathy. Cara's heart swelled with pride and recognition. Just like your mama, she said softly, pulling Ember into a hug, seeing the echo of her own childhood dream reflected in her daughter's compassionate idea. Cara continued to write throughout her life, sharing her wisdom and experiences. Her last book, published when she was in her later years, was a beautiful, layered work titled Flour and Fire. It was a culmination of her life's journey, blending cherished recipes from the bakery with poignant memoirs and reflections on resilience, loss, love, and the unexpected paths life takes. The book ended with a simple, powerful message that encapsulated her life's philosophy. If you carry scars, remember, they're not signs of being broken. They're signs that you survived, and that in itself is a beautiful thing. Cara decided it was time for full retirement, to spend more time with Evan, Ember, and her grandchildren. She announced it at a large, joyous anniversary celebration held at the original Scarlet and Kindness Bakery, packed with staff, family, and longtime customers. The employees, her beloved bakery family, presented her with a gift that brought her to tears. A flour-stained apron, worn and soft from years of use, signed by every single person who had ever worked at the bakery, past and present. It was a tangible symbol of the community she had built and the lives she had touched. In front of the original Scarlet and Kindness Bakery, which remained a flagship location managed by Milo, a small, simple wooden bench was installed. It was placed under the shade of a tree, a quiet spot for reflection. A small bronze plaque was affixed to the back of the bench, bearing words chosen by Cara and Evan, for the ones who were laughed at. Sit here. You're safe now. It was a silent invitation, a promise of acceptance to anyone who felt they didn't quite fit in, a physical manifestation of the bakery's core message. Life, even in its later, quieter stages, still presented challenges. In his 60s, Evan experienced a significant health scare, requiring a long period of recovery. Cara, unwavering in her devotion, never left his side. She cared for him with the same quiet strength and determination she had shown throughout her life. Sitting by his bedside, holding his hand, she whispered, "You healed me once, Evan, just by seeing me. Now it's my turn to help heal you." Their roles reversed, their bond deepened by shared vulnerability and unwavering support. As Cara and Evan embraced their retirement, their daughter Ember, now a young woman with a passion for her mother's legacy, stepped up. She rebranded the original bakery, honoring its roots while putting her own stamp on it, renaming it Ember and Flame. The name paid tribute to the fire that had shaped her parents' lives and the warmth and passion that defined their work. But though the name changed, Ember kept one fundamental thing exactly the same: the mission. Ember and Flame continued to be a place dedicated to embracing imperfections, celebrating individuality, and loving what's scarred, carrying Cara's founding principle into the next generation. Years later, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and purple, Cara sat on the rooftop of the original bakery building, a quiet hidden spot she loved. Below, the warm glow filled from the windows of Ember and Flame, and she could hear the faint sounds of laughter, conversation, and the gentle clatter of dishes, the familiar symphony of a place filled with life and kindness. She watched people coming and going, laughing, connecting, finding solace and acceptance within those walls. Evan sat beside her, their hands intertwined, comfortable in the silence they had built over decades. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "We did good," she said softly. A lifetime of memories held in those 3 words. "Yes," he whispered back, squeezing her hand gently. "We turned pain into pastries, and something beautiful, like stories that show the beauty in imperfection." Then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales.